Good morning, Iggy. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Good morning to you.
I think we're near we're near the end of the summer here, and
Yes,
it's always a little bit sad because you think that all the good weather's going to go away, but it often stays for September, doesn't it?
it does.
Yeah.
Um, I'm on my last trip to Nia Bay, Washington this weekend for the
Oh,
canoe. My daughter, and then there was a few deaths in our canoe club family.
oh,
So I put the canoes away, but some of the kids are still traveling and jumping on the West Saanich canoe.
okay.
So we're on our way to Nia Bay tonight.
I see.
My daughter's still winning in their singles and doubles.
Oh, great.
Well, that's good. So our
Well, she
last trip was
must be very proud. You must be proud, and she must be very happy about doing that.
oh yeah, she started winning when she was very young on using the teachings came from my dad through other older men that passed it down to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, our culture. My dad was got these teachings from his grandfather who raised him. He was a hereditary chief, and my dad was in line for that chieftainship before he got killed in a car accident.
Mm,
And
mm.
these men that loved and respected my dad come down to the beach and give me the teachings from my dad through what they've learned. And that's what my daughter and Carrie's now and my late grandson used to when they were winning.
I think it's perfect context for what we're going to talk about today
Yep.
and how your daughter, she has a profoundly different life than you and your family did when you were that age, when you were younger, although she is being impacted by that time. So her
She
life is different, yet being impacted.
she still sees the wrongs where she could be better with her boys. She
Hmm.
always talks to me about it, and because I told her at one time she's inherited my traumas and uh, stuff like that from the residential school, the parenting part, which I had to learn, I'm still learning, still love all my daughters, and we talk. That's one impact my two youngest ones gave me was to learn respect and compassion. I never had that. I never knew what it meant before.
Yeah, yeah.
And my youngest boy in the wheelchair, I learned so much from him and his older sister. But I
Uh,
passed down my dad's teachings to my daughter in the canoe, and she's won ever since from my dad.
let's go back to those horrific times when you were in residential school, which would have put you, how old? Would you be like,
7 or 8,
okay,
I went there.
and 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 if you could talk about, well, you could certainly talk about whatever you like, but if we could focus on your brothers and sisters and what happened to them in that time, and ultimately how does that impact people today, which sort of brings us back to your kids.
Yeah. Well, when I was in residential school with my older sisters and my older brother, they were taken away right away when my dad got killed in a car accident. And they knew my dad and how he was, and the humor he had with everybody and the children, my older siblings. When they got to residential school, they knew things weren't right when they got there. And they got punished for it because they had attitudes already towards the nuns because they weren't treated right.
Yeah.
And one of the things about residential school, they separated us all. I don't know how they did it, but I hardly ever seen them. Even my older brother, we're on the boys' side. There's a girl side and a boys' side at the residential school. And they encouraged that not to be. compassionate and love for each other. Because I don't know the reason behind it, but even my cousins, close cousins that came from this community, we'd stand together in sunshine behind the wall there, and it was supposed to be out of bounds. She got punished for standing with me out of bounds with a boy, the nun said. Things like that, they really discouraged any families and no
Well,
love.
they were trying to change who you were,
Yes, yes.
and therefore remove emotion, remove compassion, and become a soldier, become a very old view of Catholicism and Catholic soldiering, that you all had to fall in line. So to you and your family who did not, that's extraordinarily courageous.
My it took a long time to say I love you to my older brother and my younger sister, but I learned that through my youngest boy and my youngest daughter. Like I said, the one in the wheelchair, and my daughter Cece that's winning in canoes now. Because of the residential school, we weren't allowed to say things like that or show compassion towards your siblings. The one good thing that saved me in residential school from the older boys, because they encouraged older boys to pick on younger boys. I had a cousin, he's gone now. My first cousin, his last name was Gabriel and mine is Pelkey, so they didn't connect those two. But he protected me when people tried to pick on me, and he'd get into fights with older boys and things like that. But I seen more of my cousin Mike Gabriel than I did with my own brother and my two sisters before they left residential school. In the end, my two older sisters ran away from residential school because of the abuse. Because, like I say, they knew our dad and my mother and still had that family um, bond that was taken away once you got there. So,
Um, okay. Uh, so let's now talk about as you start to exit residential school into other families. Uh, how we've heard your some of your history on that. How about some of your other family members? Tell us what happened to them.
um, I'll have to talk about my two older sisters. Virginia ran away when she was 13 or 14 from Mission. She, when she ran away, she hopped a train out of Mission. That's where the residential school was. It slowed down to go into the town of Mission, and the residential school was up on the hill before the town. She hopped the train when it came to a stop for a little bit, and then she didn't know where it was going, she told me, but it ended up going to Vancouver. So she ended up on the downtown east side as a teenager into the drugs and whatever life she had. And she met a guy in Vancouver. They both wanted to change their lives around for the better. They got married and they had two children together, Karen and Andy. And Virginia decided to go downtown again. Her husband was going up to Hope to go fishing with a couple of buddies because he was an apprentice plumber. And she went down there, and that was her fate. She ran into old people from her younger days, and she tried some drugs again, but was an overdose, killed her. And that was after running away and everything and trying to start her life in Vancouver. And the two kids were brought to Golden to the grandmothers, they still never ever came home, the niece and nephew. I've talked to them a couple of times in my life, but they know of us. They came to visit their mom's grave a couple of times, but they're very shy. They didn't notify us. People just told me they seen them in the graveyard visiting their mom. But and the second oldest one, Margaret, she was at the same residential school with me in Cooper on the island there. She tried stealing a rowboat and started rowing towards Chemainus, which is a few miles away.
Mhm.
And she could see the speedboat coming from the dock at the residential school. When the speedboat got up there and the priests were going to tell her to get in the boat, she dove overboard so she wouldn't go back. But they managed to pull her out of the water. She was sent to Burnaby delinquent school for girls, and she spent her time there forever, how long she was sentenced to. So they didn't know what to do with her, so they sent her to Essendale, which was insane asylum in Burnaby somewhere. And then she spent her time there, and they sent her to Kamloops, another insane asylum. And the one that found her was our cousin Edie, when I was in Cooper with, when he used to get punished for standing with me. She heard somebody calling her name and was my sister Margaret in Kamloops. I don't know what they were doing there at Cam. Edie was there anyways. When they finally let her go, that's when the residential schools closed down. They brought her to the downtown east side. And there was a lady there that helped my mother and her get an apartment, low cost housing together. And that's where they both spent the last of their days there. When my mother got cancer, I took her home here. But Margaret was locked up all the years the residential schools were still going for running away. And that's that her and my sister's story. I'm glad I got this opportunity to talk about it because I didn't want to take this to my grave with me like my mother did, with her feelings of letting us go with the Indian agent to residential school and to foster homes. And my sisters deserve better just because they knew my dad. They got punished for their
Well, your sisters were fighting to get out of that life,
yes, yes.
and ultimately were punished by a culture that didn't want that to happen. They didn't want independent thinking. They didn't want courage to maintain your culture. They didn't want all that. Your
But
sisters fought that. They were warriors.
see, our dad, like I forgot to mention, was going to be hereditary chief and very smart man, well loved. And my sisters knew him quite well. They talked about him, but I never knew him. I was too young. But yes, they got punished for trying to stand up to what was happening in that school. And my younger sister drank most of her life. All my sisters were all abused by the priests and the brothers that were going to be priests. So they all paid the worst punishment they could have for being who they are. And that is one, I'm glad I get this opportunity to talk about my sisters because they were punished. And our whole family was by being torn apart, different directions in our lives.
Yeah. Um, and so the two kids of one of your sisters, uh, are they, how are they? Are their lives? I know you haven't maintained a lot of contact, but maybe you've heard through other people.
Mhm. I managed to talk to her, my niece, and I managed to talk to him, my nephew. He's doing well in Alberta now. He's a construction foreman, the last he told me a few years back. And my niece, she's done things like driving the train and whatever she did. She grew up in Golden and Revelstoke,
Okay.
and the job she worked at. I invited her a number of times to come home to meet the family, but she's just too shy. Sort of like my oldest daughter, Rebecca. I think it's to do with one of the things we inherit from residential schools where they don't like big crowds. They're nervous of family and that. That
Hmm.
still, she inherited that. And that's my opinion of why she's afraid to come and meet the whole family. Because she knows we're all getting old now. My brothers and my sister that's left. We lost, like I say, the youngest one, Fred. And it would be nice to meet them. But
You might have to go there.
yeah.
Uh, they might not want to confront their past.
No, they never knew much about us after my sister, their mother passed. And they were brought up in an age of where you were ashamed of who you were, the color of your
Um,
skin, in that era. There was still a
mhm.
lot of that in those days. So I'm hoping that wasn't put on them too strongly.
Well, unfortunately, Iggy, I do business consulting uh, on Lower Vancouver Island, and I work with the industrial companies, advanced manufacturers in the region around Sayout. And in working with Betsy and others looking to try to find employment, uh, it is not, 2023, 4, 5 here, racism against First Nations is still rampant.
Yes,
Um, it's so these kids still have to deal with that and the color of their skin. And we like to think in Canada that we're not like that. We're not like the Americans. Well, we are.
I
And it would
believe
be
that.
a good time for us to face that somehow. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but I can see that I can see these nieces and nephews of yours still struggling in today's society with some of the same prejudices that your siblings had and had to face 50 years ago.
Yes. Um, I grew up with it, no matter what. I always ran into it when I went to school, my vocational training, worked on the job. But I met a lot of good people too, the Europeans and stuff that came over. Always tried to do good for me on the job when I was an apprentice. But my other siblings, alcoholism took over my youngest sister because of the abuse. My older brother went through terrible times. He lost two boys because of their residential school, him and his wife. My youngest brother, like
When you lost the two boys, how do you mean? Did they commit suicide?
one did, the youngest, in the basement of my brother's house,
Hmm.
and missing his mother. She drank herself to death. And the oldest boy, my brother's oldest boy, got killed in a crabbing accident out in the bay here. And the other boy, the last surviving son, tried to drink himself to death to go join his brothers, but he failed. So they saved him, but his health isn't that good. So my brother's gone through it just because of the residential school. He went from grade 1 to grade 12 there. He was in there the longest. And my sister lost her two grandsons, double suicide one morning in her basement. She found them hanging there. And then, of course, I lost my grandson, suicide in a trailer where him and his buddy were renting in Pelkey Park here. But my family's been through it. My older daughters are struggling to, they, they've an education, my oldest daughter, but her relationship is where she struggles with her husband. She stayed there. She was going to leave after her youngest daughter graduated, and then she was going to go her own way. But I guess they talked it over and stuff. But they're still having that struggle of all my daughters. I got very pretty daughters, and they all have trouble having relationships, either abusive relationships, or they seem to pick the same type of guy. My oldest daughter, he's not abusive physically, but mentally he keeps to, they have their own rooms. A lot of our people are like that, their own bedrooms and TV set up in their rooms. But they have a long ways to go to make things work. And I keep trying to talk to them. The one thing I managed to do is keep my daughters, my family intact through all of this. I'm very lucky. I've had good counseling, like I said in the beginning. And the biggest thing for me was, like I said, when I finally came home from all of this, was the elders that were here. They wanted to pass on what my dad gave them. And I've managed to be the head of the family here, even though we're trying to be a family. We finally learned how to say, I love you, my brothers. And I never said it enough for my youngest brother, even though he showed us the love. But he's gone now. But that's what residential school did to all of us. A lot of people wondered why we couldn't show unity to one another, but we did now. And still like that today, we're still struggling. But we know we love each other. I talked to my brother and sister to let them know that. And it took my youngest boy to teach me how to say that. I love you. And my youngest daughter. And again, being around the canoes, all the little kids down there that call me Papa now, because I'm their grandfather figure or parent, mother, or their father figure. And thanks to my two youngest, I've learned that compassion and respect. Teaching my son all the exercises in life just to transfer from a wheelchair to the bathroom or to the table. When he used to fall, I used to automatically pick him up, and that would upset him and he'd say to me, "You don't respect me, do you, Dad?" So I had to learn to let him get up off the floor to pull himself back on his chair. So they taught me, I grew up around him. That's what I tell people. I grew up around him, learning that and to understand what my daughter was going through. Their mother left when my youngest daughter was 3, he was 2. So I spent a lot of time with them. And I didn't want to fail at this, so I went into counseling with both of them with me for a few years. I didn't want to fail as a dad. That's the way I felt before. I felt a real failure as a dad at one time because of the residential school that broke our families apart, and that compassion, that love, that respect for each other we never had. And it was the two youngest ones, little Iggy and my daughter Cece, the canoe champion, who is learning to be a better mom to her boys because we talk. Because I told her, you inherited all my trauma. And my oldest daughter that thought about leaving her family in North Van, I told her, you inherited my trauma. You're going through a double whammy, so you might have to go to treatment for that yet. And they're talking about it now, so I'm hoping she does. They've all had their battles with alcoholism, like we have, because of our that emptiness in our heart, what we inherited from those schools. So that's where I am right now with my family.
Profound words. Profound words. Iggy, this is extraordinary. I admire your courage to talk about this. I am honored to record it and share it amongst in the world. So, on that note, see you next week.
And again, I want to thank you for not allowing me to get rid of this out of my heart. I told Betsy I didn't want to be like my mother and take this to the grave. That hurt, but I thank you.
Okay. Well, till next week. We have lots more to talk about.
Okay.
You will not go anywhere without telling your stories. I guarantee you that.
Okay. I appreciate it.